Stevenson, and I'm thrilled to be the host of this new program, Her Story.
Good morning.
Just fine. I'm Kate Stevenson from the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and from Top of the Morning from Baltimore.
Wonderful.
We are so thrilled, and we want to congratulate you for this award, and tell us how you were feeling with your grandchildren and children seeing what you've accomplished.
Well, I'm thrilled about that because it's really important for them to know of the courage of the women at Seneca Falls. It's the birthplace of women's rights, and I think they would take great pride in learning more about it. I am myself personally thrilled to be getting this award. I thank Beth and Beverly, co-presidents of the Hall of Fame, for this wonderful honor. And I'm pleased to be joining so many wonderful other inductees today. That's really making it even more thrilling. But as far as Maryland is concerned, that's where I was born and raised. And
we want to invite you to the Maryland Women's Heritage Center when you get back to Maryland.
Thank you for the invitation. Anytime. I'd love to do that. That's easy from D.C. Thank you.
Well, much love from Maryland and Baltimore.
Thank you. Appreciate
well,
you
we're
being.
so glad you're all here this morning, and so we thank you for coming, and we're delighted to have the leader as one of our inductees this year. So
Go, Beverly. Hi, Jill and Linda. We're sorry you couldn't be here. We're thinking of you.
Mary.
Well, one of the main reasons is because the organization she started almost 104 years ago is still going strong in the city of Baltimore and throughout different counties in Maryland. And I thought it was very important that her legacy be preserved as we continue to go on and on. We celebrated our centennial a few years ago. We definitely wanted to make sure people knew what her work and what her legacy was.
What do you think is exactly her specific aspect of her legacy?
I think empowering women to give back to the community. We have women who are stay-at-home moms, attorneys such as myself, professors, nurses, teachers, doctors, but the fact that we're still doing things professionally and willing to give back to the community to make it a better place for all of us and for generations to come.
In the early days, what were some of the activities that she and the rest of the group were involved in?
Oh, the women's suffrage movement was a really big one at the time, and after that there were different opportunities for voting rights for women that continued, speaking out about the importance of professionalism for women. Education was a huge issue. Johns Hopkins has a room that's named after her, and she was a lover of literature and all kinds of arts. And it's been a tradition of ours to continue. The Baltimore Junior League had POPs, which was a nice performance fundraiser that they did for years and years. The Flower Mart, which is a very popular Baltimore institution, was started by the Junior League.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The Maryland School for the Blind, domestic violence legislation that's been passed. So her legacy of standing up for women and for children in the community continues to this day.
That's amazing. You mentioned that in your role as of the current president, you also were inspired by another organization that you belong to.
Yes, I'm actually a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
McKay, and she's the president of the Billie Holiday Estate. Billie Holiday was one of the honorees here tonight. Bernice, can you tell us how is this award, what does it mean to the estate of Billie Holiday?
It means a lot to us because she's been honored. I also went to accept the stamp, and they made the stamp for Billie Holiday. I also went, I've been to a lot of things that they did inducting Billie Holiday into different things. And it means a lot to the whole estate because there's some more on the estate beside me, his sons and all. And this honor tonight was really very nice. You know, I thought it was really, so she is an icon. She will be around for a while.
All right.
For a long time.
And you heard that from the lady herself.
I'm Diana Bailey, and welcome to Her Story. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, and today my special guest is Dr. Rita Robinson. Dr. Robinson has had a very long history in terms of women's issues, education, and educational equity. So we're thrilled to have you here today, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about...
As an educator, you know, I guess I was always interested in teaching. That's my basic love. I love to teach. Another thing, Diana, you know, doing a lot with diversity training, you know, and really what does that mean when we talk about diversity? So many of my clients that I've worked with are in working situations and they look at each other and they're not being very successful. So how do we help people to understand, people who look different, who talk different, who maybe act different, and to understand that the difference may not or does not have to mean that it's something wrong.
So please tell me how you got into this career. Tell me about yourself as it relates to your military career and your leadership in the military.
Absolutely. So I never intended on joining the military when I was growing up. I really didn't know a lot about the military. And what got me into this is that I happened to be working in the mall in Frederick, Maryland. And at the time I was homeless. So I was kind of sleeping here and there. I had already quit school, and because I was trying to take care of myself.
How old were you then, may I ask?
I was 16 at the time, and I happened to run across a Maryland National Guard recruiting booth, and I started talking to them. I don't know what made me stop, but it was just one of those things. And the next thing I knew is that I was taking the test and signing papers. And
this is interesting stuff. How did you ever get interested in science in the first place? Did you know you wanted to work at NASA?
Actually, I grew up loving math. Math was absolutely my favorite subject all the way through school. But I was in college in the late 1960s, and there were a lot of troublesome things happening. Civil rights were clearly not what they should be. The Vietnam War was going on. And even though I was majoring in math and loved math, I felt like it's too abstract. I need to get something that's more concrete. And that's when I switched from math to science. Different instruments get us information about different things. Like an instrument that's measuring the same kind of radiation our eyes see, called visible, is going to see what our eyes would see. So you can get great records of things like clouds. You can get great records of things at the surface as long as there's no cloud in the way, as long as it's light out. But then there are other types of radiation, like microwave, that can see through the clouds. And so therefore you can get data at the surface.
Sue Fryer Ward moved with her husband to Clinton, Maryland in 1959 and raised their 2 daughters there. She was extensively involved in service to our community's most vulnerable, but in her professional life as a social worker and administrator, and through her community service as a volunteer citizen advocate. She was the director of the Prince George's County Department of Aging and then the Prince George's County Department of Family Services, director of the Maryland Office on Aging, and in 1998, she was appointed as the first cabinet-level secretary of aging.
It is. It's very exciting. So tell us a little about your mom, and we're sorry that she can't be here with us today.
Yes, so am I.
Yes.
Very much so. Well, there's so much to say about my mom. There, in terms of just qualities, her warmth, her ability to connect with other people, her intelligence, her strength. She was a fighter, but she was kind and was no pushover. Grew up on the Navajo reservation, although she was not Navajo, and she grew up living all over the world, so she had a perspective going into life that was a little different.
I think from the very beginning I was very active in school and different activities, and then in high school I became real active with the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, which did a lot of civil rights work and a lot of citizenship work and community work. And I think that kind of sparked me. I became active on the national level, went to the national conference, went to an international conference in Israel for 6 weeks, and our focus was really on civil and human rights, and that's what kind of got me really dedicated.
Yeah, and you never left that dedication.
No.
Would you talk a little bit about the work that you've done on women's history, because the Hall of Fame is obviously a great example of that. We know that you coordinated the Maryland Women's History Project and are program director for the Maryland Women's Heritage Center.
Yes, I was lucky when I started working at the Maryland State Department of Education. Jill Moss Greenberg had started and initiated with the Commission for Women a Women's History Project. And I was fortunate enough to come in and adopt it and had the biggest pleasure for 20
I
years.
just became very active in PTA, which back in those days was a very active group. I had 4 kids in school.
When you were involved early on with the PTAs, what were some of the school system issues that you were dealing with?
Well, the one that received the most attention in the press and public discussion was school desegregation, but there were many others. There was an issue about how far handicapped children had to travel to get to their classrooms.
This is special ed legislation then.
Yeah.
Right. You still got desegregation in Prince George's County, which is good.
Yeah, but it did not, it should have happened so much earlier. And it should have been so much smoother if it had.
Good evening, and thanks again for coming out to participate in this outstanding program with us. I am extremely honored to be inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. And I know that there are many women out there who are doing extraordinary things every day in our state.
Welcome back, and we're here with Aretha Bridgewater Sims, and congratulations on your induction into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame, 2016. It must be very exciting for you and your family.
It's very exciting.
Good. So tell me, how did you get here? Well, tell us a little bit more about your life and your career. And
it's a long journey. And I think that, and I have been here for some of the ceremonies in the past. Never thought I would be a recipient. But I have a long history of growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, where the opportunities were really few. And so I grew up knowing that I had to get myself together to get the career that I wanted. There were not many role models that I could really think about at the time because we didn't see.
And I'm thrilled today to be talking with Jill Tejan, and she's the CEO of the National Women's Hall of Fame, which is exciting because we're here in Annapolis right now at the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. But she's here to talk about Gail DePlanck. So Jill, thank you so much for being here, and tell us all about Gail and why you nominated her.
Well, it was really my privilege to know Gail DePlanck. In 1997, she chaired a committee of the National Academy of Engineering. It was called the Steering Committee for the Celebration of Women in Engineering. And the reason she chaired it was because she was a member of the National Academy of Engineering. There are not very many women that are members of the National Academy. She was incredibly well respected. It's actually engineering's highest honor.
Oh my.
To be elected to the National Academy of Engineering. She was a PhD.
And my guest today is Dr. Catherine Guerra. Welcome, Catherine.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You have quite her story, and you have quite a lot of experience as an educator, as an advocate, and as an activist in your community. Can you tell us kind of how you got started in that, what your educational background was, or your family? What got you started into your very prominent career and as an inductee into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame? So you've been a busy woman.
Well, I think in terms of my career, it started when I was 4 years old. If my parents are correct in remembering, apparently I like to accumulate dolls. But I started at the age of 4, lining them up and teaching them.
Oh, getting them in order, yes, of course.
So I was a teacher from probably prenatal stage. In any event, I was a teacher all of my life, and after I graduated with my baccalaureate degree, taught at Catonsville High School. Taught high school for 6 years, loved it. Then I went on and eventually get my doctorate and did my work on Shakespeare and taught at the university level before I went into administration. But some of those high school students who are now in their 70s invite me back to their 50th reunions.
Very nice.
And so, as I said, it's one of those long-lasting, gratifying careers.
I got my first DDS degrees in Greece. Then I came here for postgraduate training. I finished my postgraduate training in pediatric dentistry. And then they told me, congratulations, you cannot work, practice.
You could not practice because the licensure was different from Greece to the US?
That's right. So I had to repeat dental school. And I repeated at the University of Toronto. And then I came down to Baltimore.
Sure. Now, when you were in Greece and wanted to be a dentist in Greece, it was a couple of years ago.
Yes.
But were there very many women dentists then?
50%.
50%. Ah, so your percentage in Greece was much higher
Yes.
here
Yes.
than at that time. And how did you
Much
choose
higher.
to be a dentist? I mean, and especially for pediatrics, for children.
Well, it was between a physician and a dentist.
Mhm.
And my father insisted I should be a dentist because I could have my office next to my house.
Oh.
So as a woman, I don't have to go out of my house.
Really? And that was part of a little bit of the Greek culture?
Was the Greek culture, yes.
Yeah. Was your dad a dentist?
No.
Or your mother?
No, none of them. None of them was a dentist.
So you were the first in your family?
And that's in my family, yes.
Mhm.
My brother is a sea captain. My sister was a representative of Greece to the common market.
So you have a very talented family as well as yourself.
We work hard for it.
We work hard for it, absolutely.
Welcome to our show, Linda.
Thank you, Kate.
I would like to know what your first introduction was to women's history.
My first introduction to women's history was returning to college after 18 years and signing up to become an early childhood education major. And I had just lived through the the modern women's movement.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I, our marriage survived that. And I was more interested in learning academically about women's history because, of course, when I went to school, it wasn't mentioned. Women were never mentioned. So as a minor, when I signed up to take my classes, I chose women's studies as a minor. And that's when I had my first academic introduction to the whole topic.
With Linda Lindsay, who is a board member with the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, and she'll tell us more about the Unsung Heroines program that we have here at the center.
Just impressed with this program, although I can't hear a word anybody says. I'm confused. It's nice to know that the young generation still appreciates what everybody did their part during World War II.
Well, I'm Susan King, and last night I was told that I would represent our chapter of Rosa the Riveter. We are a chapter. We're not growing because we did not.
The program that we had in September of 2012 was designed to honor and recognize the women who participated in the World War II era, either through the military service or through working.
So as you probably can tell from my accent, I was born and grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. And I have to say that I had a very good role model in my mother, who was a lawyer at that time when it was not very many women did law, and my grandmother, who really did not have an education but believed very strongly that women should be educated. And so I've always sort of kept that in my mind, you know, as I've made choices along the way. And so when I came, my whole family moved to the US in 1978. And I moved with them and wanted to continue. I had my bachelor's degree in economics and statistics from University of Cape Town, and then I wanted to continue my education in the US, and I applied to the only universities I had heard of from South Africa, but I ended up going to Princeton, which was a fantastic experience, and did statistics there.
What's going on with them right now and where we're headed in the future. And so today we've been talking about a very serious subject, trafficking.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're addressing this topic. And I know that having a teen, Brooke Burkhardt, who worked on it and continues to work on it, I hope will be really inspiring to other young people working on it. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that while Brooke emphasized the work with the United Nations and throughout the world and developing countries, it's also here in Maryland. It's in the United States.
More than we would even want to think about, right?
Much more. And it's prevalent in many of our counties, and people don't realize that they have women, some men, but largely women, who are forced into human slavery and sexual slavery against their wills in our own state.
Well, I had a guest on the show on Women Talk Live several weeks ago, and he had been to the Super Bowl game. And he said the biggest surprise to him was finding out that our Super Bowl events are the largest sexual trafficking events that go on.
In the whole year. This
Everywhere.
interview is a little bit different because this is honoring Jean Cryer, who is deceased, but what a legacy she has left. And we're getting to interview today one of her daughters, Allison Cryer DiNardo, and she's kept her mother's name for her middle name, as I have with mine, so feel about it very much. So I'll be asking you about your mom, and which is wonderful to have a daughter talk about her.
Yeah, sure.
What was it about your mom growing up that helped shape how you and your sisters have grown?
Well, I think first of all she was educated by the Religious and Sacred Heart, which are a group of very strong-willed, well-educated women who really believed that young women couldn't be limited by what they could do. She heard that message loud and clear, and she taught it to us as well. She was inspired by her father's love of reading. Her father died when she was young, right after he came back from World War II. He was a physician, and the one thing they loved to do together was to go to the library. And so it's always been a favorite of hers. And she was a voracious reader, and both fiction and nonfiction. And I think
And a wonderful writer.
And a good writer, too. But as she said, the best writers are those who read an awful lot, as she told us over and over again as
It's
children.
a wonderful event, and to have your mother honored is very special. Yeah. What do you think you feel most proud of in terms of her accomplishments?
Well, I think my mother was a real winner in so many ways. I mean, she was able to have a family, she had a career, she had multiple careers. She was publisher of the Gazette newspapers, she was a state legislator, she was a member of the Planning Commission in Montgomery County, but she also was, she taught at Montgomery College, state and local government. There were so many parts that she was still always willing to try something new.
Campbell Stevenson. And today we have our honored guest, Helen Delich Bentley, with us. And she just recently was inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame, and she is on the on the honorary board for the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. Welcome, Helen, and thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you. I am delighted to be here, and I'm also delighted to be part of the heritage, not only of Maryland, but also in the country for women. I'm in my 90th year.
And you're doing great.
And you know what? God has been good, and I'm happy.
Well, I'm so pleased to hear that. We're happy to have you here because you're such a legend here in the state of Maryland and actually nationally for all your many contributions to maritime laws and maritime committees and serving in Congress.
I go back, my parents were immigrants, both of them. They raised 5 children, and then 2 other children died in their early. But they were always proud people, and I think that's what's important. Everybody in the family has been proud to do well.
And to contribute here.
And contribute
yes.
to the development of communities.
Talking about how you're working on the State Board of Education,
yes,
which is preschool through 12th grade, and as well as at the community college, Prince George's K.
Well, it's amazing because I have been at Prince George's Community College since 1995. I came to Maryland as Vice President for Student Services, and just about almost 6 years ago, and on July 1 of 2007, I was appointed as president of the college, where we serve 44,000 students, and those students are doing great things all over the county, the region, and certainly the nation.
That's great.
And then I've had the pleasure of serving on the State Board of Education. Gubernatorial appointment, Governor O'Malley appointed me in 2007, and just this past July, I was elected president of the State Board after having served as vice president for probably just about 3 terms.
So you have a unique hat in being 2 presidents at once.
And you know, it's amazing because with the State Board of Education, we are, through policy and regulation, having the opportunity to touch the lives of almost 1 million children enrolled in Maryland's public schools.
Maryland Women's Hall of Fame.
Thank you. I consider this quite an honor.
Yeah, it is, and you're joining some tremendous company, as you know.
I am aware of that.
Yeah.
That's rather awesome.
It is. I know. It's very overwhelming almost, isn't it? Could you tell us a little bit what you think in your life led you into these endeavors that you've been in that have caused you to be such an achiever?
Well, I had parents who were very encouraging, and they created quite a competitive spirit in me at a very young age. But I really expected to be a high school biology teacher, and I had a true life-changing experience. My husband is a first-generation American. His parents are were both born in Germany, and at that time Germany was divided by a wall, East and West Germany. And as young marrieds, we took a trip.
We are so proud of you.
Oh, I am proud of them because I know what they have done, and they do a lot of tremendously good work and hard work.
But you have been our leader through all of the wonderful Title IX programs that you have really pushed forward in the laws and so on.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people to do it, and you pass a law and it's great, but there've got to be people who then push to get that law enforced, and that's what those women are doing and have been doing for years. And without them, Title IX is not as good as it would be.
From Jill and Linda Shevitz and the women at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, we thank you so much, and please keep up the great work.
Oh, well, that's what I would say to them, because they're doing the hard work, which is in the field. They need to continue, and I know that they will.
Well, thank you so much. We're great.